What is going on, guys? This is Trendkill, and welcome back to part 3 of my Q&A series. Today we're going to be talking about the software settings for the software that we discussed in part 2, namely the capture module software from the Total Media Extreme package that comes with your HD PVR, and Sony Vegas project and render settings. So let's pop open the capture module here, and what you're seeing is the signal coming directly from my Xbox 360. Obviously, you can see the dashboard here. So we're going to go through all of these settings here and kind of show you what you need to be selecting for capturing video from your Xbox in the best quality that we can possibly get. So in the source box up here, I guess you want to call it, the drop-down menu, you want to select your Hauppauge HD PVR capture device, obviously. And other things that will be listed here will be other pieces of capture hardware or software. This XSplit broadcaster is the software that is used for broadcasting for live streaming, which I haven't done yet because the HD PVR has about a 1-second lag between the video that you see on the computer and the voice that you're hearing coming right now out of my mouth. Anyway, so we're going to select the YPBPR for the video input. That's assuming you're using component video. If you're using S video or composite video, which is the red, white, and yellow cables, then you obviously select those. By the way, if I stutter or say or a lot, this is a one-take type thing, and I'm covering a lot of info, so let me preface that real quick. Anyway, the audio input, you're going to select RCA back, front, or SPDIF, whatever the fuck that is. Obviously, the main thing you're going to select is the RCA back because that is where your component's going to plug into. PC audio mode, just leave it at 2-channel stereo because you're not going to need 5.1 for YouTube stuff. Device settings, everything stays as it is in default unless you want to change anything. The video decoder doesn't really show you anything. There's not really anything you can change. This is a bunch of crap I know nothing about. Signal detected 1, that is my Xbox. The line's detected 720. That means it's detecting 720p. Brightness is default, a little bit higher than all the other stuff, and you can change this to your liking if you really need to. I don't think it's necessarily worth it because a color correction in Vegas will make it perfect. So we're going to go into the format settings here. This one always takes a little bit to load because the video is being affected. Source resolution, 1280 by 720 at 60 frames per second. That is the source resolution of the 360. So it's just telling you the 360 is the source, and this is the resolution that it's detecting from that. Most of your games are going to be in 30 frames per second. I don't know why this is showing 60. My guess is because that is what the Xbox is capable of, not what the games are all capable of. Most of your FPS games like Call of Duty, Battlefield, I'm sure Counter-Strike Global Offensive will be in 60 frames per second, but most of your other games like Borderlands, Skyrim, those types of games are in 30 frames per second. There are a handful that play in 60, most play in 30. But anyway, you don't need to know that. Let me click default here so we can go back to the default settings. You can see here that it's set at 8 megabits per second. That is the video quality. You obviously want to get the best video quality that you can get, so we're going to drag that up to 13.5, even though we're going to be down converting that later in Sony Vegas. But I like to record the best quality that I can get out of my 360. So then you've got a couple other options down here that I never change and you don't need to. I don't know what boost analog audio does. I'm guessing it boosts the analog audio. I'm just guessing there. Disable bling LEDs. All that does is turn a light off on your actual hardware of your PVR, which is not necessary. Your Lumen Chroma can stay at 3, and AC3 audio encoder is still fine, so I'm going to cancel out of that. Let my video pop back up here. The only other options you have are PlayStation 3, AVC HD, and Xbox 360. Even though I am recording from an Xbox 360, I record as a PlayStation 3 because it defaults the saved format to an M2TS. That's the best quality file for importing into Sony Vegas that is on this list. You don't want to try to put MP4s into Sony Vegas. It will have a fit. It doesn't like them, and I have never had any luck with that. So leave it on PlayStation 3 no matter what device you are recording from. Enable preview on recording. All that's going to do is what you're seeing right now, this picture of the Xbox 360 dashboard. When I click capture and this is unchecked, this picture goes away. If you have this checked, this picture stays. The only reason I don't have that checked is because when I'm playing a game on the computer, or I'm sorry, when I'm playing a game on the TV, I don't like to see the video out of the corner of my eye on the computer at a second delay. It really throws me off for some reason. So I uncheck that just so I have a black screen. I also check hardware acceleration because I am recording on a Dookie laptop and I feel more comfortable that my hardware is being accelerated. Even if that's not true and that's a fake check, I'm still going to leave it there. So, other than that, really, that's all you're going to choose here. You obviously have an option to save to a certain spot. I've just got it saving to my videos section there. And beyond that, for the capture software, you are done. Just remember to take your format settings, or in your format settings, to take your bitrate up to 13.5 and make sure you're recording in an M2TS. Those are the only two important pieces there. Other than that, let's go over to the Sony Vegas. Now, what you're seeing here is a basic Sony Vegas setup. I've got 3 pieces here that I've imported. This is a video track, and these are 2 audio tracks. I do that because usually when I import a gameplay, I've got a video track, obviously is the video. I've got an audio track, that's the game audio, and then I've got a second audio track, a third track total, that is the voice audio. So let me drag the episode 28 Skyrim voice audio in here. And let me go back to the video section here, and let me drag, I'm going to just take a stab that this is the right one. Holy cow, look at me, I am super smart. So when you render, or I'm sorry, when you capture video from the 360, it puts the date and the time that you've captured it as the file name. If you want to rename those, you can, if that helps you at all, I don't know. But anyway, so I drug this stuff in. And I just want to show you that this is the video track, this is the audio track here for the video, and this is my voice track. You can see here I spent the first few seconds trying to sync everything up and make sure everything was looking okay. So let's talk about project settings here real quick. Before you import any video or you set anything up or you even try to get in any editing, you want to set your, sorry, I'm looking at my render settings. You want to set your project properties, your project settings for Vegas. And what you're seeing here is the project settings that I use at all times. Let me go back. Is there a default option? Doesn't look like it. Let me set it at some basic settings here. Let's see. NTSC standard. That looks good. And this is going to be at 8-bit by default. This is going to be at good by default. And this is going to be at blend field. So this is going to be at a 1 by default. So what you're seeing here is the default settings that you'll probably come across when you load up the project properties for your very first video. You're going to notice that this is, well, this should be in 480. Change that. This is going to be at 720 by 480, which is a 480p video format. Let me click apply here. And let me mute this so that you can't see it. So this is your standard 4:3 preview window, which is your basic standard definition TV size. You're going to notice that obviously when I go back in and I change that to a 720, or I'm sorry, a 1280 by 720, which is a 720p, which I'll do that right now. Click apply. You can see it stretches that out and it makes it widescreen 16:9. That's what you're going to want for YouTube because you're going to be recording your stuff in 720p, and that is going to be a 720p widescreen 1280 by 720 format, 16:9. So you want to make sure your width and height are at 1280 by 720. You want to leave your field order at none progressive scan, pixel aspect ratio at 1 square, your output rotation at 0 degrees. Your frame rate, depending on the game that you're playing, is going to be at 29.97 for your basic games, and for your first-person shooters, you're going to run it at 59.94. That is 30 frames per second, which is right here, and 60 frames per second for your first-person shooters. Now, you Europeans and Asians, you're going to be recording in PAL probably, and I don't know anything about it. My guess is your equivalent of 30 frames per second is 25, and your equivalent of 60 frames per second is 50. That's what I would guess. I know nothing about it, so don't take my word for that. Stereoscopic 3D mode, you want to leave at off because YouTube, you're not going to be putting 3D videos on YouTube. However, if you did want to render some kind of thing in 3D for your TV, you could do that. You can set that by, you know, however you want to do it, side by side, top, bottom. If you got a 3D TV like I do, it will change based on how you want to set it. So, regardless, change your pixel format to 32-bit floating point full range. And when you do that, the default for 32-bit floating point full range is 1 linear. You want to change that to 2.222. That's the gamma. That is going to change the brightness of your video up a lot. So when you add your color correction later, it's not going to choke your video into like blackness. So put your gamma at 2.222, change your full resolution rendering quality to best, your motion blur type can stay at Gaussian, and your deinterlace method needs to go to interpolate fields. Also, I always leave adjust source media to better match project or render settings checked because I think that is checked by default. Then you want to select start all new project with these settings. That's going to save all these, so when you start something new, it's going to use these settings. Click OK. And you are good to go as far as your project properties are concerned. Now let me show you the first few steps, or at least the default steps that I take on every single project that I do. The first thing that you're going to want to do is you're going to right click on your video track, you're going to go to properties, and you're going to disable resample. That is going to fix any kind of ghosting properties. Let me cancel out of that. Let me see if I can find some ghosting here. If I can find any action spots where I've got some ghosting. Why is there a little border around there? Kind of weird looking. Let's see here. Probably won't get any because this was not a super action-packed episode. So it doesn't really matter. But anyway, you want to go in and you want to disable your resample because if you get any ghosting, that will fix that problem. So let's see. Let me drag this back up here.